Today, we have gathered here for a dialogue on digital financial inclusion for informal workers in India as a part of our project, Good and Better Jobs in India, also known as Grow Jobs. The project looks into strengthening the discourse on inclusive economic growth by analyzing the existing channels of workers' welfare. I will now take a moment to introduce you all to our speakers and provide a brief agenda for today's webinar. We will start with a short presentation by Ms. Sanchita Chatterjee, Fellow at CUTS, who will walk us through the ongoing study undertaken by our team for promoting workers' welfare. The presentation will be followed by the panel discussion. Today we have amongst us Dr. Aruna Sharma, former secretary to the Ministry of Steel and one of our distinguished fellows, Dr. Chetna Chaudhary, fellow at the National Council for Applied Economic Research, and Deepro Guha, senior manager at the Quantum Hub, as our esteemed panelist, along with Ms. Varidhi Singh, advisor at CUTS, as the moderator for today's panel discussion. Coming to certain house announcements, each panelist will be allotted 8 minutes for presenting their views on the questions posed to them by the moderator. After our panelists have put forward their views, the floor will be open for discussion, which will include all the participants present with us today. We request all the panelists and presenters to please keep their videos on for an engaging discussion. We also request only the person who speaks to turn on his or her microphone, and other participants are requested to put their microphone off when not speaking to avoid any inconvenience. Lastly, participants having questions are requested to ask the same over the chat box or use the raise hand option present in the Zoom. Now, I would request Sanchita ma'am to please present and take the event forward. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tasmita, for that introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to present some results from an ongoing study and also introduce you to the project under which we are organizing this webinar. And we've been organizing we have organized few such webinars under the project, and then going forward we're going to intensify our webinars, and we are trying to take up issues relevant for mostly workers in the informal sectors or workers in the formal sector whose jobs are not formalized, and their welfare issues and other issues relevant to them. So please let me share the screen, and perhaps some of you, particularly Dr. Sharma, is aware of the project, but I think there are people who are not so aware. So for them, I think for their benefit, I think we should talk a little bit about this project, but I will not spend too much time on it because our aim here to discuss the particular topic on which we are organizing this webinar. Let me share this, let me make it full screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, but for some reason, yeah, okay, yeah. All right. Sorry. Okay. So we are here to discuss digital financial inclusion for informal workers in India. And this is, towards creating good and better jobs in India. What do we mean by that? So this is, as I say, is part of our project, and this project has been implemented in two phases, is being implemented in two phases, and we call it Grow Jobs in short. And as part of this project, we are trying to build a narrative for an alternative, inclusive, and sustainable model of economic growth. And in particular, we are talking about issues such as workers' welfare and how companies should prioritize workers' welfare, because this is also good for their own growth and as well as the growth of the Indian economy. When we are talking about informal workers, because there are different definitions, let me just explain what we are looking at in our project. So informal workers, one definition is workers who lack formal contracts and social protection because they tend to be less educated. In our studies, we have looked at issues which casual or contractual workers employed in the formal sector face. So, this includes contractual workers employed by a range of industries, for example, hospitality or textiles or food processing, as well as seasonal workers, for example, in textiles, workers who are employed through third-party contractors. In construction sector, this is standard practice, as well as contractual workers hired by digital platform-based companies or aggregators or gig workers. We call them normally gig workers. And when we are talking about digital financial inclusion and literacy, what do we mean? Again, there are some definitions for our understanding. Digital financial inclusion. So, the concept is that we're talking about cost saving digital means to reach currently financially excluded and underserved populations with a range of formal financial services delivered at an affordable cost. But when we're talking about inclusion, we also have to talk about digital financial literacy. And in a very simple term, it means an individual with digital financial literacy who has a knowledge and skills to use digital services to make better financial decisions. But we're not just talking about knowledge, we are talking about the risks, we are talking about risk control, we are also talking about their rights as consumers and redress procedures. So there are a lot of angles to it. Now, in our project and in our ongoing studies, we are really not looking at the inclusion part of it, like digital financial inclusion part of it. In some cases, we have touched upon digital financial literacy, but really not in much depth. So we're really, really keen to hear our experts on what they have to say today. But before I hand over to them, just a little bit, I want to share from an ongoing study. And this is a study which has surveyed gig workers in 5 cities in India. And 450, we have 450 respondents through this survey. And we have some interim results. These are not final. So the people we have surveyed, their median salary per month is rupees 28,000. And we find most of them are not taking advantage of either government schemes, welfare schemes, or schemes their companies are offering to them as employees. So only 8% are saying that they are availing some form of government schemes, like including financial incentives or insurance. And 22% have said that they are receiving some kind of benefits from their companies, respective companies. That includes employee loans. And almost 100% of our respondents say that the process of availing government schemes is very, very hard. And from their comments, we find that many workers say that it is really hard to access information on government schemes or even understand the intricacies. And some of them say that it's very hard. And these are the people who have certain degree of digital skills. And they are saying that they find it very hard to navigate government portals or any other sources of information through which government, tells them about these schemes. They don't find these user friendly. And some respondents find that their own companies are not very forthcoming about the kind of benefit schemes they have. And some of them will say the company staff are not helpful. Generally, it seems they are not happy with the kind of benefits they can get either from the government or from companies. So I'll stop here and I'm going to hand this over to Varidhi. If there are any questions, I can take up later or we can carry on the conversation beyond the webinar. So Varidhi, over to you.
Ma'am, your mic is on.
Thanks, Tasmita, and thank you very much, Sanchita, for an insightful presentation. It is a privilege for me to moderate this pivotal session where we are delving into a very, very topical issue which is affecting millions of informal workers who are actually driving our bustling economy, yet remain underserved by traditional financial services. So as I look forward to our experts in the panel to understand how innovative digital strategies could be used to bridge this gap and empower and transform the lives of informal workers in India. So, without taking much of the time, I'll directly go to Deepro. Deepro, if you can help us in understanding how the new age fintech platforms could help us in, you know, in creating tailored services that are more inclusive of the needs of informal workers.
Thanks, Variti. Okay, so just to start with, I wanted to set a little bit of context on the work that we have done on financial inclusion and how that sort of plays into this question that you've asked on how digital financial inclusion can help informal workers, so to say. So we've been sort of studying regulatory aspects of India's financial inclusion journey right from independence to now. It's quite a deep dive into what Indian regulators have done well and not done well over the last 75 years or so. In fact, Aruna ma'am was one of the stakeholders we spoke to, to sort of enrich the report. Now, while we studied this, a few things sort of came out, and I want to point those out before coming to digital financial inclusion. Our study sort of showed us that initially India followed the cooperative-led model for financial inclusion, even though financial inclusion in itself was not an objective. But the measures that India took seemed to promote cooperatives to reach out to people who were financially excluded. That was across initially in the 50s. Then we had bank nationalization, end of 60s, and then the Garibi Hatao slogan in the 70s. And there was some sort of move towards doing financial inclusion through income generation schemes, like IRDP, etc. Then we move on, and in 1991, there was liberalization, and then there was more of competition amongst banks to reach out to the financially excluded because of liberalization, etc. But why I'm mentioning this is throughout the journey, one thing that was common across is some sort of mandate from the government to reach out to financially excluded people, whether it be lead bank scheme or bank nationalization, etc. This has changed a little bit in the last few years with increasing tech, with India's techno-legal DPI approach. It seems like India now is sort of creating a platform, which is the basic DPI, and let everyone sort of build on it and see how that can help everyone, including the financially excluded. And that's what I sort of want to talk about today, how India has used this new approach, the DPI approach, which has not been as extensively used anywhere else in the world, and what kind of potential it has for informal workers and generally for other financially excluded people. Now, just to start off with, since we're talking about informal workers, I just wanted to touch upon the major problems that they face in joining the financial system. And these are sort of legacy problems over time, maybe less so today, but I will still mention them. Of course, first and foremost, lack of documentation to open bank accounts. Most of our informal workers would be, say, in rural areas, agricultural workers, etc. Often they would not have the relevant documentation to go to the bank. Going to the bank in itself would have been a problem of a few years back because there wouldn't be that many bank branches to cover the entire population. Then even if you manage to get that bank account, actual usage of that bank account is another problem because India sees one of the highest dormancy rates in the world, about I think 35% by last World Bank statistics. So usage, say getting credit from the bank, informal workers would not necessarily have that credit history on paper to get loans from banks. Aside from that, as Sanchita mentioned, digital literacy in itself is a big problem, and therefore the knowledge of how to use all these new systems, etc., does not exist at a wide. Basic problems that informal workers would face in getting a bank account, in getting involved in the financial system and getting financial services. Now, what India seems to have done well to cover most of these problems is create that base architecture. In this case, I'm referring to Aadhaar, that allows some of these problems to be bridged. So, for example, when we talk about lack of documentation, India has more or less given Aadhaar cards to every citizen. Okay, I'll come to that question as I end. Yeah, so nearly 100% coverage, across India of Aadhaar cards. So that basic level of documentation has been covered for. Not only that, India has now come up with unique solutions on Aadhaar, like say eKYC, wherein essentially the bank just needs to ping the Aadhaar system and then gets to know who the person is or is not. So the days of carrying multiple documents and meeting the bank manager, convincing him to open the bank accounts, which might be difficult for informal workers, is changing. So that's one base level problem that India has solved with the DPI approach. Secondly, I was talking about a lack of credit history, etc. India has also come up with the account aggregator system, OCAN, which allow a sort of cash flow based lending, because the account aggregator system allows sharing of financial data. Now, if we talk about, say, Kirana workers, Kirana shop owners, right? They might not have that much data, on paper, but their financial records, bank, say, UPI transaction data, etc., might show that there's that much transaction going on in their business. Now, using that data to give loans is sort of the new solution that has been come up with respect to the usage element of financial inclusion. So the access element gets solved with the Aadhaar bit. The usage element gets somewhat solved with solutions like account aggregator. So these are some of the basic things that India seems to have done well with its DPI approach. Now, moving on, what can we expect in the future basis this DPI approach? Because now we have these DPIs in place. We have UPI, we have account aggregator, Aadhaar, etc. And now fintechs are sort of joining in to build on top of this. We have seen quite a few, unique models that have sort of been come up with. For example, we were mentioning gig workers, right? There have been trials of using gig workers' data from the gig platform to give loans, essentially creating credit history through the person's history on that gig platform. So Uber driver, let's say, how much does he earn per day? How much cash flow does he have? What can he pay back if you give him a loan in how many months or years? So these are the sort of solutions that can be come up with basis the infrastructure that we have already created. Talking about digital literacy, that's also something. This is not necessarily DPI related, but fintechs have also gone into the domain of digital literacy, realizing that only when the populace is literate digitally can their services be given. So, for example, one example of this would be the Saksham app. NABARD has created the Saksham app, which is used by SHGs across the country. And it has information on what are the different types of financial services that can be offered, how these can be availed, what are the best practices while availing these services. So, it's really helped in terms of emanating the message of financial services across, say, the SHG system. Then we come to unique financial products that can be offered basis information that this digital DPIs create. So there's this new concept called digital capital, essentially where, because we've become such a digitized society and everyone's using creating data across the board, you can use that data to offer services. So as I was saying earlier, credit history might be lacking for a lot of informal workers, etc. But a lot of them are part of the digitized system and they have some sort of digital capital. So an example of this could be, imagine a Kirana shop joining ONDC, right? Now, because they've joined ONDC, the orders are going through ONDC, there's a record of how much the person is selling, not selling, etc. Again, you can use that sort of data to sort of afford loans and do your risk assessment, etc. So this creates a, unique new solutions that can be used. We've created the platform, the base of it. Now it's up to the, say, private sector, fintechs, etc., to create unique solutions on this. Having said all of this, I would like to end with a few cautions. Digitization is all well and good, and we've done pretty well with our DPI approach. But there are certain things that we need to be mindful of going forward. One, India's digital divide is still pretty huge, even though I think currently 80 crore of our population have internet access. There's around 60 crores that don't, as per last estimates. So you have to factor in that part of the population also, who will not maybe be creating this digital capital I was talking about. So there needs to be, this word is often used, digital model, right? Where you create the digital models for everyone's benefit, but if anyone can't reach, the internet or these digital solutions, then you have a physical alternative to it. That's one thing that needs to be kept in mind going forward. Secondly, publicizing this data. For example, we've been talking about how well UPI is done, and UPI is clearly done really, really well. It's used across the board. But when I go back and look for financial inclusion versus the UPI statistics, there don't seem to be that many reliable reports that suggest how many people who were earlier financially excluded have got included in the system because of UPI. Of course, through our experiences, often you see people on the road having QR codes, etc. You understand it must have happened, but there's not enough data, or at least I have not found enough supporting data to be able to research on the fact, disaggregated data to see where it's done well, what kind of communities is done well. So that's the other part, sharing of this data. While we are creating these systems, we should also publicize this data so that our claims of doing well with this DPI approach are backed by data. Yeah, and then finally, my final point would be on, again, back to the digital literacy, that we have to ensure that everyone's aware of these solutions that are being created. A lot of times these solutions are top down, right? People only close to the creators will find out about such solutions, etc. So there needs to be a concerted effort across government, private sector, etc., to come up with unique solutions, even for education. And yeah, I think I'll stop that.
Thank you, Deepro. Very, very rightly, you have pointed out the innovative strategies that are being taken care by the government as well as the private fintech sector. However, you have cautioned us regarding the challenges that still lie ahead of us. So talking about the challenges, I would now go to Dr. Aruna Sharma. So, ma'am, what could be the measures to ensure a balance between promoting innovation in the digital financial arena, at the same time promoting consumer welfares, especially with respect to sections like informal workers? So, we would like to hear from you.
Thank you so much. And with excellent introduction of the two speakers before has been very, very helpful to set the context. I will put it this way, that when you look at it, like they said, there is no data. So if you look at the mobile payments, it is the CAGR is 45%. But then it is not a very happy situation, because in 2019, when I was in RBI member in the very high level committee for deepening digital payment, the floating cash was 15 lakh crores, right? Which has now become 36 lakh crores. So in the sense, it has more than doubled if you look at it. So even though the digital system for payment has increased considerably, to still have this cash floating to save the taxes, or whether GS direct or indirect taxes. Having said that, it means that the unreachable for the tech is not just those who are in the remote areas or who do not have an access to the smartphones. Those who are not in the fold of the fintech or the high technology which is coming in the digital world of financing is also the people who do not want to have a fair game in paying the direct or indirect taxes. They are completely out of the system, and their entire business with the amount which I told you is not coming into fold at all and in the digital world, not at all coming. And that is where a big problem lies, which is attempted being solved by the CBDT, so that the wholesale payment from the RBI to the banks will be digital. So that kind of a cash float will automatically get controlled over a period of time, because no new notes will come into the market. Retail will, of course, UPI is the best solution. So I don't think so. One should even think of CBDT there. So having said that, on the payment, the next problem comes to the internet mobile banking for the transactions. That is also coming out quite strongly. All G2P and P2G payment are today digital. Whether you pay to the government in terms of your bills or whatever it is, or government pays all the beneficiary schemes, or to the contractors, or to the various mechanisms in which the payment is to be done from the government treasury, they are all digital. So in a way, a transparency has been established into it. And when we talk financial inclusion, the RBI has given a mandate to each branch, whether it is post office or a bank branch, to increase the financial literacy, and they have come up with lots of volumes of literature on it. See, why I talked about the G2P and P2G, all scholarships for the children, and generally scholarships to the children are those who are from the lower section of the society. That is paid digital. So when it is paid digital, they have a communication through SMS. They have an account either in post office or a bank in the vicinity, and it is automatically happening. So they are a part of it. So untouched population is not very big, because the lowest rung of the society, whether it is NREGA payments, whether it is scholarship payments, whether it is pension payments, the vulnerables, they are literally being touched. They may not be completely in fold, but they are being in touch. And I always say that financial inclusion is not just having a credit, which Deepro very nicely explained on the credit eligibility. Now that microfinance has completely gone into digital, you have a credit worthiness data now. So all the small payments, one is able to capture to their credit worthiness, so sort of expose them to future topping of the credit. But when we talk of the inclusion part of it, it has to be insurance, it has to be also savings, it has to be the other financial products which are coming forward. Now here fintech has a large role to play, and they came up in a big way, very big way. You had their preloaded cards for students, where they can keep on debiting it, or they had easy loan availabilities, much easier than even the microfinance systems. So they came up with that. But in the whole enthusiasm of technology thing, they created a mess into the banking laws. And we have an example of Paytm payment banks. What happened to Paytm? Paytm for financial transaction, no problems. But the moment they graduated to become the payment bank, all problems stepped in, because they did not follow the proper financial rules. And that is where the mess happened. That is the reason why the RBI was very reluctant even to the preloaded cards, allowing fintech companies to go ahead with it. It had a major break in between. Then with a lot of discussions and all, they restarted the whole thing. So that is the way these fintech companies are going, that technologically they are sound, but they have to follow the financial principles. So I will put it this way, that the fintech companies themselves have to educate themselves on the financial discipline. The technology will allow all these products to go ahead. The technology will allow for them to be innovative about it. And that is where their major role comes in. So that covers the first part, which has been asked to cover into it, that how do you ensure the innovations? Innovations will continue, but innovations has to take care of it. And in that, for the consumer protection, cyber corrections, tokenization, hiding the facts, your credit card numbers not getting disposed or anywhere displayed, or your debit cards not being displayed, all this has become a part of it. And when you come to the gig sectors, what you find is the major problem of gig is not so much of them getting the credit. The major problem, they are getting the payments also digitally. The problem comes is the social protection issues. And what has been correctly flagged is that they are not aware and they don't have an access to the various schemes. So whether it is a healthcare, which as a common citizen they can have Ayushman, or whether it is taking care of their provident fund savings, to which they are eligible being in the informal sector. So this education has to reach to the gig workers so that they are able to save for their social protections and they are aware of their legal rights. These two are getting missed out completely when you look at it. And because their payment or income is not regular, they are not subjected to EMIs. That is their problem. And this was resolved when we solved the problem of giving housing loan to the farmers. Because what was happening in the software of the banking, the moment you don't pay one EMI, two EMI, you become a defaulter and you go into the defaulter list. Now, coming out of defaulter list is a hell of a job. It sort of creates a lot of barriers to your other activities. Now, here what was done then was for the agriculture workers or the agriculturist, if I put it that way, the EMIs were allowed on a quarterly basis. The software was corrected that they will test it that if you have paid it in a quarter or maybe 2 quarters, fair enough. You will not be declared as a defaulter. Something similar will have to be done to these gig workers who do not have a regular flow of income, who may have peaks and troughs into their income levels, so that in a half-yearly basis, they are able to pay off their EMI. And yet, if they don't pay, they can be declared as defaulters and rest of the things can follow. So that protection is also needed to them, which they have a major problem. So one is social security, other is the way your credit schemes are designed. That is very, very important because that has to be flexible enough to appreciate their income flow, how it is coming. Then they have to go into the lines of how construction laborers all over the country in every state have been registered. So similarly, these people who are into the digital framework have to have a common registration where they will automatically get the social security. Because construction laborer comes from the lower rank of the society, they even get the maternity benefits and for the construction laborers, there is also a payoff for the maternity leave. So they will get wages for those 6 months of maternity leave once they are registered as a construction laborer. So that kind of a thing one has to think for these digital-based gig workers when we are talking about it. So in social security, it is their provident funds, it is their health care, it is these kind of benefits which they are eligible with. Automatically we come if you have a common registration or a common pool. And they being digital, it's not difficult for them to go for it and get a unique number about it. So they are informal workers of a different category and that registration will help them in a big way. Similarly, in that, the contribution comes from the government, contribution comes from the employer as well. So automatically, even if they are shifting their employer, it continues. So there is no break on them. They don't have to extra work on it. A similar pattern has to come for them. And your credit schemes have to take care that they do not have a uniform way of getting salaries per month or a monthly flow of income. So all financial products have to be redesigned by using innovations which are legal, which give them legal protection to have that flexibility. So I think I will stop here. Is there a question? For different interest percentage on borrowings. Well, interest percentage is a big debate. India is a very expensive credit ecosystem across the globe. We are the worst example that one can think of. And that will be applicable to all. But yes, there is a case to provide, like there is a lot of talk for the MSMEs to give them maybe some discounting on the interest rates, like in the housing for the poor. The discounting comes, to them in terms of the interest payment. If they are regularly paying their EMI, then they get the advantage. So it is sort of linked to that. So that kind of an interest subsidy can easily be inbuilt into this. So it's not a bad idea at all and can be thought of. So I think I'll stop here. And if anything more is there, we can take up the questions because I thought I'll stick to the time.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma, and very
Over to you, Nandini.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sharma. So, very rightly, ma'am has flagged off the issue of preloaded cards, and we all have seen how it has fed to a number of cyber crimes happening. So now we'd like to go to Dr. Chetna, and I'd like to understand from her what measures could be taken so that we can effectively improve the digital literacy, and that will lead to better financial inclusion of these informal workers. Because as ma'am has flagged off, uh, we really need to think on the design of credit schemes. For example, preloaded cards were there, but we have seen how educational and not so educational institutes have misused these cards in some of the states, and the candidate has no idea how that card has to be used and how it has to be, the EMI has to be repaid, and they just thought that it is a credit card that could be used for a number of purposes. So this brings a very vital question of financial literacy and digital financial literacy. So over to you, Dr. Chetna. We'd like to hear from you. Uh,
Can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Okay. So, thank you, Varidi, thank you, Dr. Sharma, Sancheta, and Dipro for explaining the issues related to the innovative digital solution to cover the vulnerable population. So, basically, today we are talking about digital literacy. So, it's basically to enable the vulnerable population to access information, knowledge, and skill through the use of digital devices. So here we want to enable them so that they can accept payments or say settle invoices or transfer funds anywhere in the world just in a few taps. So basically, in last few decades, we have seen there are so many progression in this field. Like we have seen the progression in Aadhaar, use of Aadhaar, and UPI also, especially after the pandemic. But if we talk about the statistics, a survey by NSSO in 2020-21 shows that there is only 37% of people in rural areas of age 18 years and above, and 60% of people in urban areas who have used mobile telephone with active SIM cards during the survey. So basically, there is another report, Digital in India in 2029. They have shown that a majority of the almost 100% of the internet users in the country use mobile devices to access the web. So there is digital divide that we have already discussed. But many government policies are basically now digitalized. Say, for example, if we talk about PMJ, that is the government insurance program for vulnerable population, their registration can be easily done in the PMJ website. So they can go to PMJ website and find whether they're eligible. They have to fill up the registration form, upload the necessary documents, and get the OTP numbers, and then feed in personal information. So it's not for not so literate people, and if the person is digitally illiterate, then it's even harder for them. But it can be done in offline mode also, like what Dipro had said, there should be some offline modes also. It's already there in common service center or in established hospital. There people can register themselves. But we were doing a study on evaluation of PMJ, where we found that when we were surveying the hospital, it is said that there is Ayushman Mitra, who is basically in the hospitals helping people to register themselves in the programs, in the program, and find their names in SACC document so that they can apply for it. But in that is also a digital thing. So the person, Ayushman Mitra, is doing the work in digital platform only. And also, I mean, if the person is going offline, he needs some verification, and if the documents are mismatched, then it is a long process. They need to submit the document in other offices, and verification takes long. So it's not easy for people who are not digitally literate. Similarly, there are other schemes like PM Fashal Bima Yojana, or say Ujjwala Yojana, Jogi, PM Shram Jogi Mandhan Yojana. All these schemes are there. Maternity schemes like there are Janani Suraksha Yojana or PMMVY, that is Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana. Those are for financial assistance to pregnant women, and that are also can be operated easily through online mode. So, so today's world, it is utmost important to have digital literacy, not only to get the benefit out of it, but also know the eligibility criteria, the benefits that are available to the eligible people. So informal workers, we know, are the vulnerable population. Many of them have no social security, and sometimes they don't have any formal contract. So we, in one study, we had found out that for non-agricultural sector, 67% of workers have no written job contract, and 52% are not eligible for any paid leave, and 54% are not eligible for any social security benefit in India. So we can understand how vulnerable they are. And they are actually eligible for many social security benefits, but are they aware that they are eligible for this? So we did one evaluation program of ESIS, that is one employee insurance program. So basically there the employers need to enroll themselves, and they can give the employees some medical benefits. So some benefits, but these benefits include medical benefit. There are cash benefits for maternity, for sickness, even the disability benefits are also there. But when we talk to the employees, we found out some people are aware of the medical benefits, but there is very poor awareness about other cash benefits, about maternity or sickness or disability. So some people, they don't know that family members are also eligible to enroll. So this is a major problem with many government schemes in India. So if we talk about digital inclusion and getting benefit from government schemes through digital inclusion, we need to know, understand that awareness level is a constant here. We need to improve the awareness. And digital literacy also can play a very important role in generating awareness, because now mobile phone is available to many of the a major part of the population. They can access information through it. But there is problem in infrastructure. There is no reliable electricity or internet connectivity. Smartphones are expensive, and in India, the major problem is language. One major problem is language, because we are linguistically diverse. So it's basically there are so many languages, and the training documents that should be in local language so that people can understand. And there is this digital skill gaps also. People might be digitally literate, especially people from informal sector, but they can't go beyond, say, messaging or something. So they can't use email, browse internet, or navigate online platforms. So that is even worse for women and elderly. So for women, it is social cultural barriers. They are restricted, they have restricted access to resources. So that's a problem. And especially for older adults, basically the awareness of importance of digital literacy is also not there. But one major problem is there about this is digital security. So there is one study which shows that 71 million of internet users are basically 5 to 11 years old. So they need to, so we need to be careful about the risk factors very well. So there should be, the digital literacy should be there, but with all the cautions. So how can we overcome those challenges? First thing is infrastructure. We need to have reliable electricity and internet connectivity, broadband networks, mobile towers, and affordable devices. This theory of technology acceptance model that talks about three factors that can motivate people to accept and adopt any technology, that is perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, and attitude towards usage. So how can that be achieved? That can be achieved through this social cultural barriers that we face, and also through training and acceptance, increasing acceptance among people. So it should be provided in local language, and the training personnel should provide the training in local language, and so there should be public awareness program about the relevance of digital skills in everyday life or employment opportunities or access to government services. And there is one government program also, National Digital Literacy Mission, which aims to impart digital literacy skills at least one member from every household in India. We need to monitor and evaluate these programs. And also there is a huge need of training to combat the cyber security problems. Like we need to recognize the common cyber threats such as phishing email, malware, or online scams. Or we need to training how to navigate internet safely. We need to know how to create strong password or identify secure websites, or what is risky in the online platform. We need to know that. We need to have some knowledge about data privacy rights and understand the difference between trustworthy sources and misinformation. There should be a proper legal framework to address those issues if there is some cyber crime. And also the security risks and are evolving. So there are new security risks that are coming up. I remember one of my colleagues in NCR, we do work on skill and gig platform economies. So in one of our colleagues, she narrated one story that in online platform, in online food delivery platform, once a person got shaved because of some personal reason, the platform is not recognizing his face, so he is not able to register himself or earn his day's salary, a day's wage for this not for the platform not being able to recognize him. So it's a these problems are emerging. So there is new types of problems, challenges would be there, and there will be some problems that are very specific to this informal sector people who are actually facing that. And we need to understand, as Dipro said also, that we need to understand their feedback, their understanding, their challenges. So there should be user-friendly interfaces and simple navigations. There should be training program of digital literacy and basic computer skills. And also one thing is important, that is already discussed, that is evolving an ecosystem that is conducive to easy and secure digital technologies to provide better access to financial services to informal workers, which include specially designed and tailored financial products like pension, saving, investment, small business credit with flexible payment options. Cashless payments infrastructure like UPI, NEFT, mobile wallets, this should be there. And differentiated bankings, like if the informal worker is not being covered in the general banking, there should be differentiated bankings like small finance banks or payments banks. And the delivery ecosystem also needs to be improved, like enabling financial literacy platform or digital infrastructure for easy submission of KYC or other documents. So this digital literacy can open many doors of opportunity to informal workers, can add them to job network. We all know about platform workers, and can provide them with employment opportunities, can bring many people, especially women in the job market, and give access to government schemes. But we need to be careful about cybersecurity threats and empower them to identify threats, protect themselves, and respond effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chetna. It was really nice hearing the suggestions you have mentioned that could help us in bridging this digital divide. Now I'd like to open the floor if for any discussion or any questions. Sanchita, you would like to come in?
I think there were some questions or comments in the
Yes.
chat box.
Yeah.
Maybe, if we invite them, they can
Sure.
add to the discussion. I think Dr. Didar Singh or Rajesh Das, if they want to come in and add to the discussion.
Dr. Didar Singh, we look forward to hear your views. If he's still here.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, my question was that if we've done such a good job and we have done a very good job, why is the informal sector still going on? Why is the informal sector actually expanding?
Yes, Deepro, would you like to take this question? You're on mute.
I'll take this question, but I think given Aruna ma'am's experience, she'd
Okay.
definitely be able to
Okay.
answer it better
Okay.
than me.
All
But
right. Okay, I'll initiate, then Deepro can add on,
sure.
right? Sir, you are absolutely right. The informal section become more and more stronger the moment everything shifted to the contract laborer. The government also went ahead instead of recruitment to contract, and private sector was anyway on the contract. So all
Yes.
this got bunched up into the informal labor category. Besides that, the age-old informal labor impressions what we had. In fact, a lot of work happened there, like the kind of example I gave of construction workers, they all got organized. Similarly, these pockets who were of a particular kind, agriculture laborers, they all got
Okay.
who started reaching them. But this middle class category which came up, that created a lot of problems now. And that's how our number is increasing. So we have to register them and ensure that, like I always advocate, common household databases, so that we can take out this category and push all the benefits to them, whatever they are eligible to. So it has to be a little top down, but then at least they become aware about it. Yes, sir.
And
Yeah,
just,
go ahead.
Just to add to that, I would also say, and this is again purely theoretical knowledge, not ground knowledge like Aruna ma'am's. But our inability to, I think, move a large proportion of the workforce from agriculture to manufacturing and services may have something to do with it, because a large part of the agriculture force are informal workers. But again, this is theoretical knowledge, and I'd like to caveat that with.
The issue incidentally is that we have to find some other solution because this is not working.
I would say that, initiatives like eShram, where apparently nearly 30 crore workers, informal workers have registered, are potential ways to work around this. I was reading about how the Delhi government has created this API connecting their benefits, welfare benefits to the eShram network, where the benefits can sort of be got automatically from people who are on the eShram network and are otherwise eligible from the Delhi government for benefits. So things like that, I think can help going forward.
Good, good. I hope you're right.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. We have another question from Rajeshri. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Voice of People, if you would like to raise your point. Okay, I guess we can move forward. Anybody else would like to pitch in? So we have, yeah. So what strategies can be implemented to address the challenges faced by gig workers, such as lack of job security, unstable income, and limited access to social safety nets, to ensure their financial resilience and well-being in the evolving digital economy? Ma'am, Dr. Sharma, would you like to take this?
Okay, I'll take it up. And then other of the two panelists can chip in whatever they would like to add on. So see, it goes like this. The gig workers, they do not have a regular income and they will have phases. They'll have different employers at different phase of time. They may be working for multiple employers at the same time also. So they do suffer with that. Therefore, it is very important, and accordingly, the labor laws have been corrected. They can register themselves and have a PF. And the PF contribution will come from all the three employers if you're working parallel for all of them. And similarly, even if you switch the employers, you will get the advantage of it. So make it a point that you are registered and you carry your card even when you shift the employers. And you give that number, your unique number, to your employer, so that you make your contribution and they make their contribution to the same account number, so that you don't have missing credits into your account. The health benefit scheme is common for all. The insurances are also there, which is fair enough, as well as this open government mass scale insurance that has been done under Ayushman Bharat to pay off till 5 lakhs of rupees for a family. So have a look at that, make that card and see whether you are getting benefits. You are a little better knowledgeable than common public. So I'm very sure that you can take the advantage of that. Having said that these two are taken care of, your job security cannot be taken because you are a gig worker. You cannot be under that zone. So you will have to be in constant search of getting your consultancies or employment or whatever is needed. That is not going to happen. So your focus has to be on social security and health. And your flow of income, that you ensure that all payments are made digital and your expenditures are made digital. Don't go for the cash, because that will help you to develop your credit score. And then you can avail any of the credit schemes that are available, whether you go for housing, whether you want to expand your business, whether you want to enter into other kinds of works. It is very important, because that is a big advantage of digital operation of finances, because it leaves a digital imprint of your financial behavior, and that adds on to the credit eligibility of yours. So I think with these three, if you focus, then rest will slowly start following it. And that will be the way you can go ahead with it. And we are awaiting for the labor codes, the merged labor codes to come forward, in which effort has been made to make it a point that employer and employee is not like a long term. It can be part-time also. And that part-time has been accepted during the discussions. We are just awaiting that how a part-time worker is treated under the labor laws, so that your protection against number of hours, your maternity benefits, your other cares, non-exploitation is also taken care of. So we are just awaiting for those labor codes to see the light of the day, so it can be dissected further. I think I have answered to your query. Thank you.
Can I add?
Yeah. Yes, Chit.
Actually, in our study, in gig worker with platform workers in our office, that we found out that in some food delivery platform, they are providing accident insurance. They are not providing medical insurance, but some of the providers are providing accident insurance. I'm not going into that whether it is good or whether it is giving them more like incentive for rash driving or something. That's a different issue. But there is some kind of social protection that is provided towards them. But I think the legal framework, government should provide. Government should actually put some pressure on the employers to provide some more benefits to them that can add to their social security net. And also there should be some legal framework about that ma'am has already spoken about. There should be some legal framework, and it is not very much decided in which group these gig workers are falling into, whether they're self-employed or whether they are employee to the employer, because they are not under regular salary group. So that is a problem that needs to be sorted out, and the legal framework for the violation of these labor laws, that needs to be sorted out, so that we can frame actually laws for them, and we can actually understand, I mean, how it can be improved. That's it.
Speaking of the legal framework, I think Rajasthan has passed a gig worker specific law. And at least in my reading, it seems like they've created a unique category, neither full-time employment nor complete contract work, but somewhere in between where you get some of the benefits sort of from both sides. So that's an interesting model, I think.
Can I say something, Paridhi?
Yes, yes, please, Sanchita.
To Chetana's comment, in fact, we find that the gig workers say employers are not helpful at all. Their employers are not helpful at all, not just in providing information about what kind of benefits they have in their companies, but in anything. I mean, they have some issue with customer. They don't know how to lodge a complaint, or even if they lodge a complaint, there will not be any solution in their favor. And in a lot of cases, it seems like they are confused or they're lost. So maybe some of the companies have schemes for their employees, but there is a gap. There is a gap between because we have also talked to some aggregators, and then they say that they have, benefits and schemes and policies and strategies for their employees. But there is a gap between, what they are saying and what the employees are saying. So, either the policies are there, the communication is not perfect, or the policies are not there. Yeah. So there is some issue there for sure.
Thank you, Sanchita. And we have few more suggestions and some questions I would say. So, Dr. Rashmi, would you like to make your point? So, Dr. Rashmi is talking about skill information and education is there. Just a second, we got. Oh, can we unmute Dr. Rashmi? Akshay? Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you to all the speakers for such an insightful session. My question is, I'm trying to say that we say that a lot of skill formation and education is being done in India. But in spite of that, what happens is the people who get skilled, they are not being absorbed into either the formal sectors or the skill sector. And ultimately, then for survival, they need to do something. So they land up into the informal sector, which make things even worse. So, talking about all these programs with keeping formalization at the center stage is not working because the informal sector is increasing at such a high pace. So, what is your take on that?
Absolutely right, because a gig worker is replaceable. That kind of a skill set is available with many, and that's what lead to the exploitation. So they should forget about coming into the formal employee-employer relationship, and therefore there is a need, what Deepro and Chetna were very rightly saying, to come up strongly with a separate category of these kind of part-time workers and ensure that they are not exploited and they have their rights and their protections when we are going ahead with it. Because this is bound to happen. The way we have structured the whole thing now, everything is either a contract or it is sort of sublet, or you are paid for the kind of services you are going. So it's a glorified daily wage working kind of a thing. It's a wage kind of a thing. So it is bound to happen. And that's why you have to develop some unique skills so that you are less and less and less replaceable. That is what the gig workers have to constantly hone up and acquire those skills for their own survival. Otherwise, yes, it's a difficult phase. No doubt about it.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Tashmita, I would like to know how much time do we have?
Ma'am, actually, the discussion is so engaging that we have a lot of questions. But since the webinar was for 1 hour, like 4:30, we can, given the speakers and other participants are ready to engage more, we can have another 5 minutes of discussion, I guess, if it's okay for everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tashmita. So, yes, I could see a lot of messages in the chat box where they're talking about challenges and suggestions. So we have another rounds of 5 minutes as I've been allowed from Tashmita. So over to all of you.
Maybe I can answer the last
Yes.
one.
Yes,
Well, not
please.
answer, just attempt
Yeah.
at what I think of it. It's a problem. It's a difficult problem to solve. How much aggregators take from the actual cabbies, and I think the only way to let market forces sort of play out, there be enough competition in the market, and then have the actual cabbies get their right share essentially. But again, there are unique solutions that India is sort of trying to come up with, ONDC being one. We know the Yatra app is now available on ONDC, where basically more people get to access the services. It's not only through a Uber or a Ola or whichever other aggregator that your service is available. The ONDC is open protocol, and whoever's on ONDC can avail of the services. So again, theoretically, this can solve that problem because you have a broader market you're catering to. But I think we'll have to see how this plays out, how, say, the Yatra app on ONDC plays out. It's opened in a few cities now. I don't think there's enough evidence to really make a ruling on this, but it could be one possible techno-legal solution.
Here I have a little reservation, like they want best of both worlds. They want to be a part of the aggregator, and then wherever they can make money, they want to do it. This is not going to work. You have to be a part of a discipline. It is like we used to, when we were young, we used to always say that the trader makes most of the profits, whereas the weaver is getting lesser money and the shopkeeper is getting the major part of the profit. At that age and time, we did not realize that there is an inventory cost which the trader bears. The trader pays off immediately to the weaver, but then the inventory cost is borne by the trader, which may get encashed at a very late in time, if you look at the timeline. So similarly, the aggregator is enabling them to have an access at a common place, and whatever is their agreed terms, they are getting it, and aggregator is keeping their profits. So they want to do away with that profit once they have got hold of the customer through the aggregator, and then they say, okay, you cancel it, but I'll take you in my own private capacity. I think both ways it is not a good approach, not a correct approach at all.
Indeed. Thank you, ma'am. Now I think I should conclude this session. However, it is quite engaging and we have a lot of personal and experiences as well to share. But in the interest of time, I would now like to conclude this session. And I would really like to thank Dr. Sharma, Dr. Chetna, and Mr. Deepro, and all the participants for the engaging discussion. Today, we have explored a range of innovative digital strategies that have the potential to significantly improve the lives of informal workers. And the insights that have been shared today, I'm sure that they have not just highlighted the challenges, but also suggested the practical steps that could be taken to make digital financial services more inclusive, accessible, and reliable as well. So thank you all, and we would like to take this conversation further in a number of webinars ahead. So thank you once again.